Ashley, if Doug would have access to Epicenter applications, but if there's a way we could maybe get him, although we're kind of done with the application process at this point. Well, you can probably see, aren't they posted publicly online?
He can see them.
Oh yeah, you can see them in the, you can see them at eBoard, so you're good. Great. So I guess I'll stop there and open it up for discussion. So the vote was 6-4. Ashley, could you give us the breakdown of who voted what the votes were, or who was dissenting,
Yes, let me just pull it up and say.
in case you've forgotten?
What month was it that we,
December.
December was the December one? Yeah, I was just pulling up the minutes as well.
Minutes here.
Right. Okay, the vote was Stephen Walker, Heather Von Cannon, Cheryl Turner, Lynn Kroger, Jeanette Butterworth, and Bruce Friend, 4. That was 6. And then opposed, Alex Quigley, Linda Lynn Cacadelis, Sherry Reeves, and Rita Hare.
Okay, so one of the questions from the state board members were, given the obviously this is based on opinion, but saturation in the area where this school is planned to go, the feeling is this application would need to be kind of a slam dunk, or feel, they would like to see an application that would be unanimous or stronger. That was one thing that was brought up, are we kind of, or if there's misgivings about this in an area that's already quite saturated, I think that raised some concerns and flags for board members.
Yeah, one of my biggest concerns,
And can you make sure your mic is? Thank
one of
you.
my biggest concerns on doing a revote, however, is the majority of the people that were opposed are not present. So
Right.
that's gonna that could cause it to be skewed than it would have been normally.
Yes. That is a concern. And I guess, what are our options in terms of, or Dave, what do you think the state board is looking for?
I think they want the advisory board to look at this application again and vote either to recommend it to open or not vote to recommend it. I think that's what they're looking for.
Was there any discussion at the state board as to certain things with the application or the interview that they thought that we should necessarily reconsider? It's, I guess, coming from the legal world, when a court sends something back to another court to reconsider, they say reconsider it in the light of this or in light of that. Or was this just y'all vote again and see if you can come to some kind of consensus?
I think it was considering the number of charters and the strength, reconsider it based on the concerns that they have on the number of charters and the strength of the education plan.
And I kind of feel like we did that when we went through it the first time.
Mr. Chairman, Joel Ford. I agree. It's like the board has already taken a vote, 6-4, and clearly I didn't vote, but I'm not hearing or aware of anything that would determine that this is not a good application or that they would not be successful. Typically, if you listen and you participate with other applications, normally there is issues concerning the management, the mission, or even the financials, none of which I've heard about this particular application. As it relates to saturation, can you really have too many options for education for children in any area in our state, especially if you take a look at the challenges that we're having in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and in other areas in trying to educate a certain population. So if there are no objections from any of the members here this morning, Mr. Chairman, again, I highly respect this group in terms of the thought and the due diligence that goes into reviewing applications. And I've been quite impressed, and I'm continuing to learn from you all. But if there are no major objections, Mr. Chairman, I don't see why we don't vote again and send this back to the State Board for approval.
I'd like to follow up on Mr. Ford's comments there. It was pretty clear to me that whenever the state board sees a very close vote, 6-4, 7-3, they've kind of set that precedent where they want us to look at it again and just reassure them that we've made a good decision here. You know, majority rules should be what counts, but clearly they're digging a little bit deeper and seeing, you know, if we don't have a unanimous or near unanimous vote, we have concerns that we want you to just readdress. So just keep that in mind for future votes. You know, whenever it's going to be close like that, we're probably going to get it bounced back to us.
And I think we strive to be unanimous as much as we can.
Sure.
But I think if every decision we ever sent out of this board was unanimous, it would probably mean we weren't doing our job.
Right.
And we weren't thinking independently there. I mean, I thought the application was a pass. I didn't think it was the strongest application in the world, but I thought it was a good application. I thought it was something that was needed in the area. I think probably a lot of the discussion that we spent time on, especially in looking back through the minutes, as well, was that there was a private religious school in the facility that's currently there, and there's at least some kind of overlap between some of the people that's involved there. And it was kind of something, I guess it kind of, you know, there was some concern that, you know, this looked like a, you know, maybe a conversion that wasn't really a conversion. And so there was you know, some issues with that, but I thought all in all, you know, it was a good application, and obviously this is, we've seen this group multiple times, so I think the dedication is there to try to do it, and that's, you know, that's why I had voted for it in the first go around.
And Chairman, quickly, you had mentioned that the state board had kind of questioned maybe the strength of the education plan. And again, going back through what I remember when we talked about this application and looking at the minutes, it wasn't the education plan that was really in question, that we felt, you know, it was more, like you had said, Mr. Walker, the issue of the appearance of the charter school being within the same building as a religious school.
Yeah, I think definitely that was a flag for me, simply because we worked with this group for so long, and then this was kind of a significant change all of a sudden that was not really disclosed on the front end. I think, you know, if I was handling it, you know, and I've been before our board 3 times, I think I probably would have come right out and said, hey, you know, like, this is, we want to put this out here. This is something, you know, it felt like, whoa, this is a big deal. Something that is, you know, that is also a flag, simply because it's something that, you know, when you're talking about private schools converting to charter schools, it's something that can certainly draw a lot of attention.
Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of our more successful charters now in our area is a conversion with Mountain Island Charter.
It's Mountain Island Day
Days.
Community.
Day,
Charter.
Mountain
That
Island
one's
Day.
brand new,
Yeah,
so I don't know if I would
they're in their
go
second
as
year
far
right
to
now.
say
Well,
it's
They're-
successful.
It's
But
not
in
the
terms
same.
of conversions, I mean, that is what that is. Is that not correct?
It
Yeah.
wasn't a religious school converting, though.
Okay, but it's a conversion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think.
This is not a conversion.
Yeah, this technically isn't a conversion. I think that was where it kind of, you know, they said, well, there's already a school
Muddy at
there,
the
so
end.
we know there's not a problem with the, you know, certificate of educational occupancy, and then it brought everything, you know, where then we started talking about, well, is it kind of a conversion? Is it kind of not? You know, I think you know, I guess I'm comfortable with the application, comfortable with our original recommendation, and
Mr.
I mean,
Chair,
I'm
since
happy
they're
to
here,
make a motion.
may I ask just clarifying questions one more
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I asked you the same question, I think back in December, I'll ask again today, just to clarify. There's no overlap of board members for this proposed school with the religious school, is that correct?
Correct.
And
I,
there's no financial interest of board members or potential staff between the two schools?
no, there's none. Correct, that's correct.
And you're not hiring, you do not plan to hire any of the staff of the existing school for the proposed charter school?
Correct, that's
No,
correct.
that's not true, because the principal
He
of the
is both.
private school is gonna be, right?
But he
Mr.
technically,
Algarani?
may I speak?
Yeah, yeah.
Good morning. I have a statement to present. May I do that?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to thank you again for bringing us back, and we appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak on this issue. The application before you, Clare Science Academy, has been before you for 4 consecutive years. Within these years, CSA has applied under the category of regular charter. In the 2019 application cycle, Clare applied for acceleration and was denied. The current application before you applied under regular charter. In question number 9 on page 7 of the application, it reads, is this application a conversion for traditional public school or private school? The board of Clare answered no. At no time in the history of Clare Science Academy application was there a request or an argument made for conversion. CSA understands, we do understand the sensitivity and the challenges surrounding charter application, especially this application. Therefore, let it be known that Clare Science Academy has complied with and will continue to comply with the North Carolina General Statute 11C-218.35. The General Assembly has provided guidelines through the statute. Despite this, it is under the impression that some of the members of the advisory board believe that the Clare Science Academy application sounded as a conversion. Please let it be known that it is not the case. It is not a conversion. Therefore, in consultation with all of our board members, Clare Science Academy has decided that we will move to another facility. Please note that the application, also please note that in the application appendix, School Development East is committed to ensure a school facility that is ready to be open for 21-22 school year. Clare Science Academy, the board, is an experienced board with expertise in education, government, nonprofit, and the law. We are familiar with the struggles the challenges in front of you. The board, however, is seeking and looking forward for a unanimous vote from you to move forward with this application because it is not a conversion. Thank you.
It's pretty clear.
So can we ask questions then, if they're moving the facility, where will it be
Sure.
in conjunction to what you were originally planning? Like, it's still in the same geographic
Yes,
neighborhood?
yes, it is. There's several. We've been working with a realtor, and one of the locations that we have looked at is located off of Independence Boulevard, which is still within the demographics.
But how far would that have been?
It's
from
about
you?
5 miles.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the statement. And I just want to state for the record, being in the school business is already tough. And we all know that there is no money for capital expenditures for facilities, okay? I don't want this charter application or anybody else that comes before this board, I don't want us to unnecessarily put barriers to those folks who are trying to open up charter schools when we know how difficult it is, and especially on the capital expenditure when there's no public money to go into facilities. So I respect what they're trying to do here, and you can see clearly they're trying to please this board by distancing themselves from the existing private religious school, including the facility. But ladies and gentlemen, let's not, if we're going to approve this application, let's be mindful of what they're doing and who they're trying to do it for.
I move we recommend to the state board that Clara Science Academy be moved to ready to open status.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? I'll say that I'm not gonna vote for it. I continue to believe that the content of the ed plan is, my main reasons were the issue that I felt like we worked with this group for a long time. I felt like there was a lack of clarity during the interview about what was going on with the partnership that they had with the private school. I think it's great that they're gonna move the school. I don't honestly, at this point, even if they don't, that all of that will be sorted out in the RTO process. But I still don't feel that the application, given what they're trying to do, the task that I have no doubt of their commitment, I just don't feel like it's quite ready yet. And it's, and maybe I'm just, being a stickler, but it's like when you misuse the word principal and you spell principal as in the principal rather than principal the proper way in your charter application, you're running a school. Like, know which word it is. Like, those things bother me. And this is not, the heart is there. So I think if they are successful, it's because their heart is there and they're gonna get there. I'm gonna stay consistent with what I voted the first time, because I feel like I had the information at hand, and I'm not really, there's not enough significant things that have changed. And I will definitely, I think, if I'm asked the question when it comes back to the board, and I'm happy for Mr. Walker to be there or someone else who votes in the affirmative to advocate more vocally if they would like to. I think the strength in the ed plan is around their choice of curriculum. So they've chosen a really good curriculum. They seem to know it really well. Amplify is a strong, the CK ELA curriculum, their math curriculum. That is an area that they have improved the application. They've improved the ed plan. And so I think, that will certainly be something that I can focus on when it goes to the full board, because based on how I'm thinking the vote's gonna go, it's gonna go back to them. So, yeah.
Alex, I was on the fence with this one. I ended up voting literally at the last second. That hasn't changed for me. I'm concerned, though, that the vote we take today doesn't represent the people who were concerned about it.
That will be articulated with the board, but at the same time, like, that's why we gotta be at the meeting. And I understand that, people have commitments and, but we have people, there have been votes that I've felt one way about our application, and I was sick it was this meeting last year, and I was sick and I didn't get to vote, but, it's kind of how it goes. And I think the board is gonna look at what the numbers are of the people that were here today. And, we can certainly attest that we saw the Clara Science people again, and we took another look at the application. The only other option would be to have another, just a phone call where we would have everyone vote, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just make a decision today and move it forward. All right, any further discussion?
I'll just add that I voted for it the last time. I'm going to vote for it this time, and I would vote yes whether they told us today they were changing the venue or not.
I feel the same way. I'm not going to change my vote.
Great, so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? Okay, motion carries, and it's 6-1. Is that 6-1? All right, great. Congrats. So you'll be back in front of the board in March. You want to join me there? Maybe?
I don't know if that'd help or hurt.
I think we'll be all right.
Thank you. Have a great
Be all right.
Yeah, I'll try to be there. Just to,
No, I'll make a strong case. I'll talk to, we'll chat with Amy beforehand. All right. Yes. At this time, if I could have Linda Lynn Kakadelis come to the podium, please. Come up there for just a second so we can talk about you. Anybody that's been on the board with Linda Lynn, you know that she is just not only a wealth of information, but just has a dogged work ethic and a heart for school choice. And her, we completely understand her decision and to move into her new position and step off the board with the coalition. But this board has definitely lost a lot of talent and skill and commitment. And we just want to thank you, Linda Lynn, for all that you've done, all that you're going to continue to do for charter schools in the state, and all the work that you've put in as a member of the board. We're really grateful. We have a beautiful little plaque, trophy, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to read it. It says, NC Charter Schools Advisory Board honors Linda Lynn Kakadelis in grateful appreciation for your many years of dedication and service to the charter school community. So if you come up here, we'd love to take a picture with you, and we're going to miss you a great deal. But we know you're going to be in the audience.
Can we maybe do it right here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Projector,
So we're going to have to show out the projector.
The agenda.
Yeah. Dave, get in here.
we'll all look forward and then we'll all turn to the
Dave, get in
side.
here. Come on now.
Chairs in the way?
We need
All
to
right.
double up.
A little closer. All right. Yeah, this is good. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Good to go.
All right.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you.
You're going to stay for lunch or?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm already texting. Should be right there.
We're ahead of schedule.
We are. All right, rocking and rolling here. We're ready for amendments. Ms. McCarroll.
All right, good morning, board. So I only have one specific amendment for you to vote on today. In office, we've had several amendments that have recently been approved. Most of them have been bylaw amendments. One other amendment that is in the pipeline, and you will see this school today, is Charlotte Choice. This is an amendment that our office will be able to approve, but if you decide to ask any questions about it today, they are relocating and they are changing their name. So I'm sure that will probably come up in their presentation today, but just to kind of give you an FYI on that. And then Piedmont Community Charter School, Sally B. Howard, Stars Academy, they all received approvals from State Board this week to increase their enrollment, which you previously recommended. And then Alamance Community School, their mission statement was approved. One enrollment consideration that you previously heard and was sent to state board this month was Hobgood Charter School. So I'm sure you recall that the school just opened this year, and they're K-8 in Halifax County. They previously requested to expand to high school to 9th and 10th grade for next school year. And that was heard by the state board this month, and then there was reservation about allowing a 2-year expansion in the second year of operation. So that amendment was pulled, and now Hobgood has brought forth a new amendment. It is still an expansion request, but rather than doing 9th and 10th grade in 1 year, they are seeking to do just 9th grade this year, 10th grade, 11th, 12th, the 4 following years. I think it's important to recognize that this is a 25 student increase. That their 9th grade is going to be 25 students, 10th grade 25 students. So even on year 5, they are a 325 student population school. It's a small school. It's a small increase, and everything that we've previously talked about, they are going to be following the North Carolina standard course of study. They are following the Future Ready graduation requirements, occupational course of study requirements. They are also adding several new staff members to meet the needs of high schoolers. All of those are remaining the same. They've just changed it from 9th and 10th to 9th grade to hopefully get closer to an approval from state board.
I want to make sure this gets in the minutes. I guess maybe even the statement that I want it to be in the minutes. This school has a very, very strong board. I think one of the strongest boards that we've seen over time. And this was an acceleration school when it opened. And it was one of the smoothest openings I think we've probably ever seen as far as the ready to open process. And my understanding is that every 8th grade parent of every 8th grade student has signed a letter saying, please let my kid continue to go to this school for high school. I think when they initially submitted their application, they didn't understand that would be the desire, and so when they started K-8. They do have experience with a high school. This is one of those conversions, so it's a private school conversion. They have ran a high school before this board has. They know what they're doing with it. And I think that this is one of those situations where we may say sometimes, well, are we setting some sort of precedent? Are we doing something? I think the precedent we ought to be setting is that parents and families know better for their kids than the government does. And that we should be allowing these students to go and these parents to be able to send their kids to the school that they want to. And there's nothing about this school that should give anybody any red flags. I mean, it's a solid school. And I think their NC check-in data has shown that they're a solid school, that they're doing what they need to be doing in a area. We're talking about Halifax County, right? And we're talking about Halifax County here, which is not known for its great schools that are in the area. I mean, the state board has been heavily involved in Halifax County schools before because of performance issues. And so I think it's very important that we make sure that these parents and these students have a choice here, and that is the precedent that we ought to set, is that these parents are seeing how much their students are benefiting from being at this school, and they want their students to continue to see that benefit. And so I move that we recommend to the state board that this amendment be approved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the matter?
I just want to echo Mr. Walker's comments that, yes, it was a very strong school when they came before us. And yes, and they have experience in a high school, so I think this is a natural expansion for them.
So the state board's concern wasn't that they were going to high school, was it? I thought it was that they were adding 2 grades at a time.
The concern that I heard was that they were concerned about setting the precedent of a school that was in its first year getting an expansion, period. And, because you're not you can request an expansion under the statute, but you're not entitled to the expansion until you've been in existence for 2 years. Then you're statutorily entitled to it. And I do think that it's, we talk about setting a precedent. Is the precedent going to be that don't even ask because the answer is always no? I don't know if that's a good precedent to set either. So I just think with this, if we look at it on a case-by-case basis, this is the easiest one that we've ever had of whether you're going to expand when a school's in the first year.
I would have been
It's
more
just
concerned
easy.
if they were adding 10th grade, because those would be all new kids. But to keep the kids you already have, that's kind of
And
a
I
given.
think the reason they asked for 10th grade is so they didn't have to come back and ask for 10th grade the next year.
Because it's the second
Because then they would
year.
have had to ask again. So I think that was really they're like, if we can ask for it now, then we can expand to 11th grade the next year without having to ask.
And some clarification too, this amendment that they're submitting right now is requesting go up to 12th grade. So,
Ultimately.
right, in that they're gonna do it one grade at a time. And clarification also is, they came before State Board in January, and then it was decided that they would pull this amendment and ask for another one where they would ask for a complete high school, 9 through 12, and only doing one grade at a time. I cannot speak for the State Board, but I think that they felt it might be a little more, comfortable with one grade at a time versus two. So I think this is a very good suggestion, it's a very good amendment, and I agree with Mr. Walker. This is an outstanding board, an outstanding leader, and they have done a great job. So I think it's a good, I don't want to use the word compromise, but I think it's a very good additional amendment where everybody's comfortable with their with the process, and then hopefully no rising ninth grader has to be sent back to another school. They'll get to stay there.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 10th grade right now, if they were to open up a 10th grade, they would have to recruit new students. So I think it served all the purposes that this board wanted to see.
So if they're asking expansion 9 through 12, would they have to come back and ask for 10th grade next year?
Now, this amendment, if approved by State Board, gives them permission to go all the way up to 12th grade, but one grade at a time.
Not all at once.
And they specifically wanted to know what the enrollment was gonna be, K-9 for next year, then K-10. And for the first 2 years, it's not even an enrollment increase, it's just a grade increase.
I'm in support of it. You don't want to have to approve an amendment every year. I don't feel like doing that. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Great.
That's it for a minute.
All right, great. Mr. Whalen, Dr. O'Neill?
Morning, board members. We're here with the NC Access Program update and to review the notification of eligible applicants. You received that on January 27th, and it's also posted on eBoard. We're coming up on the deadline for the second round of applications for the subgrant program. Those are due on March 1st. The deadline to submit a letter of intent was January 15th, and we received 50 letters of intent. 49
Right.
of those were eligible, and I'm going to have Dr. O'Neill talk through our recruitment strategy, which was sort of what was behind that level of interest. But just a couple of notes, eligible applicants have been set up in Epicenter, so they will be ready to submit their applications. We're doing external evaluator training coming up next week for the evaluators that will review the applicants, and then we will bring those recommendations to this board in May. But of the 50, we had 7 planning and implementation schools submit a letter of intent. All of those schools were eligible. 15 implementation only letters of intent, and of the 15, 14 of those schools were eligible. 26 letters of intent for the expansion schools, all of those were eligible. And then we had 2 schools apply for the replication category. And so a quick note on the replication, per the federal regulations in ESSA, you must have to be considered a charter school. There's a definition for a charter school, or a developer, which is someone who has applied for a charter. And so to be considered for the subgrant program, we are going to put the replication applicants on a different timeline over this summer once they have applied officially to this board to open a charter school and they are officially a developer. But we did not want to delay them another year if they are ready to go through this process now and ready for the replication now. So those 2 applicants will be on a different timeline over the summer once they've applied to you all, and the other 47 eligible applicants their application will be due on March 1st. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I do want Dr. O'Neill to talk through our recruitment strategy. I think one of the lessons that we learned last year, obviously we were starting up and it was a very quick timeline to begin implementing the grant and do our first round of subgrants. But sort of Dr. O'Neill and the rest of our team kind of spearheaded the recruitment process, which is the reason that we got 50. So I wanted her to talk through some of the strategies that we did over the last 6 months or so.
Board. The first thing I learned after the first go-round was that we needed to do targeted recruiting. We sent the first round mass emails to tell every charter school that you could apply, and that's not true. You had to have the AB designation. So we specifically pulled out all of the schools who had met the AB criteria and started to look at the list and say, you know, what is really high quality? So we started looking at C schools that had been a C school and met and exceeded for at least 3 years. So we pulled those schools, and that gave us an additional 10. And I must admit, those additional 10 added a lot of diversity to that original list. And if I'm not mistaken, all 10 of those schools from the C category applied for the grant. So that was really good. We sent targeted emails, started pinpointing people to come to all of the Charter Institute sessions and other meetings. We held interest meetings at various charter schools around the state. And then started thinking, we're not getting applicants who are eligible for this expansion category. So we decided to have a roundtable discussion to talk about expansion and replication. And I think that roundtable discussion took it to another level to really have the people in the room eligible for this, the roundtable for the expansion and replication, to talk specifically to them about what this grant could do for their school, the requirements, and, you know, let them talk to us about what were your fears for applying for this grant. So I think that's why we got so many expansion applications this year. And in that expansion group, we kind of looked at schools with enrollments over 600. I think personal commitment played a big part. I made a lot of visits. Sometimes Dave wondered if I still worked in the office, but I was out on the road personally knocking on doors, talking to people, looking at their facilities. Doing those in-person visits, I think, did a lot to find out, well, we don't have space to move, we don't have space to add any new students. And even now, tomorrow I'll be in Charlotte, and Thursday I will be in Fayetteville, because we're still hosting regional workshops. We call them roundtables to say, now that you're in the grant writing process, what help do you need? I specifically pulled out materials and sent out tips and hints about certain sections of the application. These have been very helpful, very helpful. I personally want all of these applicants to make it. My projection, out of the 50, we'll get 42. With the 9 that we currently have, that would leave us with 61. We have a 51. We have a 60 target from the Department of Education. So we'll only have 9 remaining slots. Even though we've only been before you 2 years, we're actually getting ready to move into year 3. It's time for us to have all 60 in place and start actually doing service to applicants instead of still recruiting. So, any other questions?
I don't know if this has been covered, but assuming best case scenario, all 49 do move forward with the grant, what does that do for the expenditure rate for the 5 years of the grant? Have you discussed that?
Yes.
Yeah, so you'll remember that we came before you, I think, last fall, and we had, in conversations with the U.S. Department of Ed, we've sort of gotten away from the caps of the number that we can give each year, and that was to better meet the needs of the charter school community. If schools are ready for this now, we want to be able to support them now. So, you know, in approving a number of schools this year, it really won't have that much of an effect on sort of we can reallocate money, it can roll over, we can sort of work within our 5 years. To date, we've approved, you know, we've obligated $3.4 million to the 9 schools now that are in the process now. By Friday, we will have approved about $500,000 in reimbursements for those schools, and so they're sort of in the process of being paid at this point. We've been, you know, we've also put parameters around how quickly subgrantees could spend money. So even if we approve a bunch of schools and that adds up to some $25 million, that's not all going to be able to be spent in the first year. So it's still going to take a number of years for that money to be obligated and approved and spent on a schedule. It changes how quickly, you know, we may be expending it yearly, but it doesn't necessarily put us in a place where we can't reimburse those funds on the basis when they're needed, if that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But you also have to remember, this is a 5-year grant.
Right.
So we need to have that money spent by the 5th year. If we don't, they could possibly take it away from us. And if it's not spent, we cannot apply for a new grant. So it's best that we try to spend the money in 5 years and make ourselves eligible for another grant.
Absolutely.
Only the federal government can require you to spend money in order to get more.
Right, I think ultimately, you know, in the conversations we've had, we'd like to be finished giving out subgrants by year 4. You all know as well as anyone the capacity of the Office of Charter Schools. So worst case scenario, we're not awarded another grant. This will transition back, and we want to be transitioning just sort of the service and monitoring and starting to have people roll out of the program, not to be bringing a lot more grantees into the program when that would have to transition back to the Office of Charter Schools after 5 years.
How is I don't know if somebody asked this, the change to the eligibility criteria, did that help?
Yes. I don't have the specific numbers, but we did get a number of schools that were A or B for 3 consecutive years, which was one of the changes, and schools that were C or above and met or exceeded growth for 3 consecutive years. I don't know necessarily, was it 10 of those schools that applied out of the 26 expansion schools?
All right. Great. This is great. I think you know, I think we got to get this money spent. You know, because we've been schools have been asking for it. You know, this has been a gap that we have. So to have to be able to have such an influx of funds to drive quality in the sector is really important. So thank you for all the work that you all are doing and for the strategy. I think it makes so much sense to headhunt essentially, which is kind of what you've done, is headhunt top schools and tried to encourage them to do this. So I think that's the right way to go about it.
The thing, if you notice, I was always at the CSAP meeting, and I had my materials, and whenever an applicant left the stand, I was rushing out to the hallway to encourage them to apply. And so I think almost every school that you have approved applied for the grant.
Yeah, that's great.
I just want to applaud your efforts and hard work. I mean, you got over 25% of charter schools to apply for this grant, and I think that's really commendable. Thank you.
Amazing work.
Keep it up. Keep
Thank
it
you.
up. Thank you.
You'll notice too, that particularly in the expansion category, there are some really high-quality schools that have been around for a long time that were not that interested when the grant first came out. I think there was some criteria that scared them a little bit, but with Jay and Barbara and their team being able to have these roundtables, they gave them, they felt comfortable that yes, this is very doable, and it certainly is accomplishing what this grant was written for, and that is to have more economically disadvantaged students in our high-quality schools. And that list of eligible expansion is definitely some of our most high quality. So, you know, I applaud Jay and Barbara and their team for doing a great job.
Great. Thank you, Dave, and thank you for all the work that y'all are putting in on that. I know it's a huge project, but it's exciting that we're able to make it happen.
I've been real impressed with how they've done this. I think the federal government can look and see how many times we asked to be able to do this, and they said no, and then now they're letting us do it. We're doing a very, very good job of it. So.
All right, it's 9:55, and we have SMA Kaiser at 10:10. It looks like most of their board is here. I want to do a break in here somewhere, so it seems like before we get into school review information, it would be good to take a quick break right now. So let's take 10 minutes. See if we can't start 5 minutes early on.
There it goes.
All right.
I knew if I tapped on it long enough. I noticed we've got quite a few schools that haven't turned their audits in. And I was wondering if that's something, and I know some of them we're seeing today, and so it'll be a topic of discussion. But for all the others that haven't turned it in, say by the end of the week, is there a way Financial Business Service could get that information to the Office of Charter Schools, and then the Office of Charter Schools basically have those schools submit something to the Office of Charter School explaining why in the world it's February and they don't have their audit in yet?
Yes, we can do that.
Because it's due when?
October 31st.
October 31st. And you don't have your audit in by February, and I think if they don't have a good reason, that we ought to seriously consider putting them on the agenda to talk about whether they ought to continue being a charter school or not, because this is ridiculous. I mean, get your audit in. We talk about how you've got to have, and I know there's probably schools getting worried now that are sitting out there that don't have their audits in, but this is something, you ask for less regulation, and you say you want to have more accountability. This is part of the accountability, is getting your dadgum audit in on time. And that's totally unacceptable to not have your audit in February. So, okay, I've said my piece. And I don't know if I need to make that as a motion or whatever, that these schools would do that, or if that's something that the Office of Charter Schools can just do, because
Yeah, I think we can just do it.
Look, I could see if we're talking about the first part of December and, you've had some issue or something with the auditor themselves or something with a building or something like that. We're talking about February. I mean, come on.
How many schools are we
things
talking
in.
about?
We're talking about 15? How many audits do we not have in?
I need to, confirm what I sent Ashley, and I sent you forward probably.
Yeah, because that was probably about two weeks back, the list I saw.
I can give you an update within about.
But I know there's at least some as of Thursday, the audit
Yeah,
wasn't
that's-
submitted, so, yeah.
Is there any correlation to who the independent auditors are to these charters that haven't turned it in?
I don't think this year that's the issue. I can confirm, we do, usually, they actually do track the auditors for each year. So I can look and see if there's a trend. But I think this year, maybe some of the newer schools that are already coming before you for some financial concerns.
What type of training do we provide schools on how to go about an audit and how extensive the process is going to be and what's involved? I mean, I know on the finance side, if you work with a firm, that side of it is not that difficult, but I'm curious, are these schools, sitting down to start their audit in July and kind of like, oh, we got to gather some stuff?
These are
It's
all
like,
schools that have been around for forever that are late.
A lot of these.
Are you,
I mean-
you got the list?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
this was back here for a little while. Carolina International School.
Okay, forget it.
Calling them out now.
Central Park School for Children.
Well, and
No, I
I
mean-
have the current,
I
the
mean,
portal pulled up, so I
so-
could update.
Yeah, if
that,
you don't
but-
mind sending us an update, that would be great.
It seems to be a couple of recurring ones year after year, and then some of the newer ones, but I will send an update.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
That is discussed in detail during RTO.
Yes. I think that, and we've recently, I think Keebler has added that into maybe a master calendar. She's doing that currently for the Ready to Open process. And then I do get the opportunity before them once or twice at least in the planning years to communicate. And then we also put it in the newsletter. And the LGC, I mean, their website is extensive, and we usually provide a link to that. And that has a lot of instructions.
Leanne, is there anything unusual this year that you're aware of? Because this seems like a larger number than we've ever seen. Is it happening across the board in other areas? Traditional schools having trouble with audits? Or
There are some late submitters for the LEAs. I think the state board has gotten involved starting last year. We're working on that because, obviously we have the policy and procedures in place for the charter schools. We typically put them on cautionary noncompliance by the end of January. This year, like every other state agency, almost the LGC is short-staffed, so we are working directly with the director. Often you'll probably see on that email. And a couple of the schools that we would normally do that with are already on governance or financial disciplinary. So they're coming before you today already. So but I don't think there's a reason. I think it just starts late or a lack of awareness sometimes.
I don't know how you can't be aware of it. It's the same date every year.
It doesn't change.
Anyway, sorry, I got us off.
It must be,
Well, I think that looking at whether or not it's particular auditors could be, that we need to look at that, because it could be maybe the people who are good at this are taking on too many schools and can't get it done.
Well, we do have one auditor that has gotten an increasing share over the past couple of years, but we've worked with him directly, and he is, I mean, they're on time now. I mean, I don't want to name names, but they're, look like good audits, and they're getting submitted on time. I don't know if it's board knowledge. I know, for instance, one of the ones today is that they separated from a management organization that may or may not have communicated. They seem to handle the business side of things like the audit preparation, and I don't know that there was a transfer of knowledge either side
Well, still.
as far as that process when they separated. I mean, we do say it's the board's responsibility.
Yeah, you want a couple $1 million, you gotta follow the rules. All right, sorry.
I do
Agreed.
think we need to seriously consider putting some teeth behind that, because at this point, if you know, we say, gee, that's not a good thing, you need to get your audit in, and then unless it's a renewal year, you can keep right on not turning it in on time.
Agreed.
Can it be something that we can consider for, to your point, Cheryl, on the renewal, that there's been a pattern and?
we do, we need to, yeah.
I think if there's no teeth, it'll just continue to happen.
Well, and we do include that as far as that summary that Alexis provides for the renewals, if there's a pattern of late reporting. But we can try to make it, bring it to your attention.
Okay. I mean, I'm all for it. And I think it's about to come up right now. So let's have the folks from SMA Kaiser come up. And we'll hear from them.
Should I see it?
Yeah, you can start.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am Tina Fox Wallace, the board chair. Have with me today James Davis, our vice chair, and James Fisher, our instructional leader, and our treasurer, Ms. Ruby Steele. Good morning.
Morning. All right.
Where's your
So,
audit?
Okay, why
yeah,
are
let's
they
start with
here?
the audit. Well, we asked them to come.
Oh, okay.
Where's your audit at?
We are in the process of obtaining the audit. We have secured Mildred Asu CPA and entered an agreement. We expect to have the audit finalized within the next 30 days.
When did you enter into an agreement with that auditor?
I believe the middle of January.
So, I mean, that's just,
We're not, it was
Understand.
in October.
did you not know that you had to have an audit done?
We
on
did.
October 31st?
We did. We became aware of that, I believe, at our last meeting here, and worked towards getting an audit secured by December 31st. However, there were some issues regarding identifying an appropriate auditor, and then also we were challenged with a financial issue with securing an auditor.
You're saying you didn't have enough money to hire an auditor?
Well, at that particular time, yes.
Now, you're working on building a new building, right?
Not building, but relocating to a new, to another location.
Okay, and have you selected a new location?
We have.
And where is that new location at?
It is, I believe the address is 820 North Long Street in East Spencer. It is the former Dunbar Center, which was a community facility.
Okay, so who owns the former Dunbar Center?
The Paul Lawrence Dunbar Group currently owns that facility.
Okay, and that was the name that you originally tried to open the charter school with, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and who all is involved with the Paul L. Dunbar Group? How much overlap is there of your board members and their board members?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand, hear
How
the
much
question.
overlap is there between the board members of SE May Kaiser Fox and the Paul L. Dunbar Group?
The Paul Lawrence Dunbar Group was actually the initial board that started the charter, and they broke off from the board and moved to PLDG.
Okay, and so how many people that are on your school's board are also on that board?
One,
And who is that?
Kenneth Fox.
Okay, and
Sorry.
is that group is it a nonprofit group?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So how do you make sure there's no conflicts of interest when one of your board members is a board member of your school and also a board member of a group that you're thinking about securing a facility from?
Well, we ask at each meeting for our board members to inform of any conflict of interest, and then we also ask them to recuse from any voting regarding that particular issue related to that.
Has he recused from voting on those issues?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if he receives any compensation from the Paul Dunbar Group?
No.
I know he doesn't from you, but you don't know, or he does not?
I don't know. I don't believe that he does. The board is not a board that receives compensation.
Okay, and have you entered into a lease yet with the Paul Dunbar Group?
No, we have not. We've entered a letter of intent.
Okay, what would be the approximate rent that y'all will be paying there?
It would be the same that we're paying currently,
Okay, which is,
$6,500.
okay, $6,500 a month?
Yes.
Okay.
How do you know about the relocation, Stephen?
They had mentioned before that they were gonna relocate, that they were
Yes.
planning on relocating. You had Mr. Little with you last time.
Yes.
What's going on with Mr. Little? Is he still working with y'all?
He sure is, yes.
The two facilities, how large is this, are they similar in size?
The facility that we're moving to is much larger. It will accommodate our growth.
What is your expected growth?
Well, our expected growth for next year is 150 students.
How many applications do you have?
Currently, in January, we received 5 new applications. We confirmed our our current students, which is 106. And so we're expecting to receive new applications throughout the open enrollment period.
And that would be get you to 150, or you'd have 150 additional? Or you?
That would get us to 150. Our projection is 150, yes.
So you're on monthly allotments currently, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's due to governance noncompliance? What's the governance noncompliance?
I believe it was low enrollment.
Yeah, it was a couple of things.
And we have a testing violation, right? But that's not related.
They didn't give the pre-BOG thing, not critical. Well, really thinks it is, but.
The governance noncompliance was issued last October 2019, and this was, I believe, following the EMO transition, but it was after the school came before this board and were unable to articulate the school's financial position and operating budget, general lack of clarity regarding the operation and financial responsibilities, and then failure to meet the requirements of the IDEA, exceptional children, like requirements.
But is that what put them on monthly, or was it a financial noncompliance that put them on monthly?
It was
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first of the low enrollment or below 80,
Okay.
when we considered that, and charter school, Office of Charter Schools put them on governance, and then I think there were about 5 after that that are on financial disciplinary. It's this similar repercussions, monthly allotment installments for either governance or financial disciplinary.
So as far as your budget and revised budget, you're receiving monthly allotments of about 73,000?
That's
And
correct.
you have 290 left for the next 4 months. Are you gonna make it to the end of the year?
Well-
Cash flow?
Yes, in addition to the 73,000, we're receiving local allotments and our local contributions and grants.
How much is that you're receiving each month?
I'm sorry,
How much are you receiving each month?
for the local?
Yes.
The local is about 23,000.
Have y'all submitted your amendment request to relocate yet?
We have not,
Okay,
Were you
You'll
aware
need to-
you had to submit an amendment request?
No,
okay, you do.
okay.
So,
We
you get
will,
up with the Office of Charter Schools on that.
okay, we certainly will.
I think, how far away are you moving?
It's
Is
a-
it still in East Spencer?
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
about a mile, if a whole
That was
mile.
right, East Spencer, right?
That's correct, East
Okay.
Spencer.
So it's only about a mile, okay.
Yeah,
So I
roughly
think
about
that's something the Office of Charter Schools can approve, that it doesn't have to come before this board.
Okay,
Gotta get that audit in.
we will, I understand.
Could we have the principal come up?
Sure.
I've forgotten your name, sir.
Good morning, my name is James Fisher. How are you all?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Just wanted to hear from your perspective how things are going on at the school level.
At the school level with academics, I'm pleased with with what my scholars are doing, with what our scholars are doing. Given the backgrounds in which they come from and the challenges that they met at the larger school districts. The feedback that I'm getting right now from parents and from community stakeholders is that they are pleased with what's going on. They're pleased with what their scholars are telling them when they get home. What it is that we are trying to do is provide those particular academic opportunities that they actually remember and that they actually can put some teeth into and use and utilize throughout their daily lives when they go back into East Spencer and the Salisbury communities.
Are you doing the check-ins?
That's the question I was gonna ask.
NC check-ins. Yes, sir. We have just completed the second NC check-in. Am I pleased with the data, what is yielded? I am not. I am working hard to work with teachers and develop my teachers to really, really help the scholars to meet those particular goals. In doing so, that requires a community effort. So what I'm trying to do is offer those particular opportunities for parents to come in and to just really, really get them to understand the depth and the brevity of what it is that we're trying to do within the academic piece of what happens every day.
Question, are you able to articulate the resources that you need from SMA in addition to the resources that you need from the community by way of helping your scholars to become proficient in their academic learning?
Absolutely, and that's a good question. One of the things that I have shared with the board is, just specifically what is needed that was absent at the time that they started as a school. Coming in as a educator, I knew right away what were the particular missing pieces, and I have shared with the board those particular things that are crucial for our scholars to get the footing that is they need so that we can see a different result year two and the trajectory going on with a longitudinal perspective.
You said a lot, but you didn't say anything.
Well,
and I'm not trying to be funny. I'm
I
looking
took it that
for.
way, but I'll listen to you.
Okay, please don't, because I take education very, very seriously.
And so do I, sir.
And I'm looking here as a board member to try and see how we can assist you be successful for the students that you're responsible for educating. So let me see if I can clarify my question for you. What resources have you identified that you need from your school, your organization, your board, in addition to what resources do you need from your community to help you as the principal, as the leader, to be successful in educating those scholars?
Okay, so from the board, I have identified curriculum, textbooks. They tell me that textbooks are obsolete, but guess what? I need the textbooks before I can even get to the technology piece, because we are operating in an antiquated sort of system. So I need that, math and science and ELF. That's specifically what it is that I need. And all those particular underlying supporting writing, we now have this new curriculum, or not new curriculum, but there's a state mandate for cursive writing and for us to really up our math piece with multiplication, so for our 3rd through 5th grade. I need technology. And in addition to needing those particular things, I think that those are the things that will really help those particular scholars just get to a even playing field. Also, from the community, I need the community dollars, the community resources that they can really help to support us with outside of the allotments that the board talks about and all those other types of things. Just getting in there to just really just help us. And it's not always about dollars. We have the volunteers, we have the connection with other stakeholders like organizations that come in to provide the manpower and things like that. How'd I do?
You did better.
Yes.
What was
Much more specific.
Thank you.
What was the, do you know the average of their first round NC check-in data? Because you just have 3rd grade, right?
No, we have, we had 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, but yeah, we have.
Oh, okay, so you have 3, 4, 5. Do you, what, ballpark?
Right off the top of my head, I do not, and I apologize for that. But it was in going through the check-in data, it did not please me, and so I know that
20%?
through some
10%?
I'm sorry,
You don't have any idea?
not off the top of my head, sir. No.
Okay. I mean, that would be something that I would expect you kind of have it.
You would
have in your
expect it,
folder,
sir.
maybe?
Yes, absolutely. And guess what? I don't.
Okay. Is that your only measure of academic progress? Are you using
It is not.
iReady or?
So we use our common monthly assessments. In addition to, we have now started to use the DIBELS for our benchmark assessments, and I'm doing that for 3 through 5.
DIBELS only assesses like fluency and decoding.
That I understand, but I also needed to, when it is that I was speaking with my teachers and going through my classrooms, we are at critical levels, even in 3rd through 5th grade. So those particular benchmarks were, in fact, necessary for us. But right now, the common monthly assessments, the NC check-in data, and things like that are what it is that we have for our scholars.
What are you using? iStation?
We are not using iStation as of right now, no.
Are you using M-Class?
No, I thought the iStation was put in place of N-Class, and the reason why we're not using iStation is because we don't have the technology capabilities right now to support.
What are they using?
Well, you gotta use one or the other.
Yeah, it's not optional. You gotta use one of the two,
Okay.
at least for 3rd grade.
For 3rd, yeah.
So,
You're probably gonna need to get your staff trained in iStation.
Quickly, because MOY actually is over. And that was the first requirement, that get it done, was MOY.
And then I'm
Meaning-
operating, you know, with what it is that I have.
Do you not
at the
have
time that I
computers?
arrived there.
Do you not have computers?
We do, but our technology does not support, you know, we don't have the level of technology that the scholars need to.
So is it the internet you don't have? Because the states have provided the devices.
We do have the internet.
The state provided devices based on the number of third graders you had. Did you not get devices?
Did not, no. Was that,
You might want to look into that because the state provided devices.
okay.
I mean, all you need is a Chromebook or
Yeah, an
iPad.
iPad.
Did you respond to the survey for the Chromebooks or iPads?
Those are the ones I'm talking about.
There was a survey that went out that every charter school should have responded to whether they were eligible for receiving those
Did not, because I did not know about, when did that come out?
at the beginning of the
Beginning
year.
of school year.
August.
Beginning of
August.
school year.
Okay, I did not receive that.
I think we need to probably have them come back in April. I would say March, but I don't want to take them out of
School that
the
often.
school that often. And just get a double check on everything. That'll give them time to get the audit in so that we can see the audit and see if they can't get this iStation thing squared away.
I also did a quick check of the website. I think there's required information that's missing from the website. I didn't see a link to your report card grade.
Okay.
Didn't
The link
see
to the
any
report card.
meeting minutes from your board. So it looks like there's
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
almost wonder
issues
if it
there.
would be good for this board to attend some of the Ready to Open meetings.
I would agree.
Yeah, they're
Just
missing a lot.
because they had the shift
Management
between the
company before.
management company and not, that maybe it'd be a good idea for the board to do some of the Ready to Open trainings, just to, a refresher.
So, Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
got a recommendation, and I know we have staff here, but can we make it clear? And I know that staff has, and I'm assuming has already done this, but I am asking kindly that you do it again in terms of providing the information that our board members, my colleagues, are asking, that you clearly are either missing or don't know. And so one of the things I think that we can do today is to make sure that we have whatever resources and guidance and procedures that you need to operate the school successfully, that you have those, if not before you get home, but sometime this week.
That would help.
And so, Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate if staff could assist again in assisting these folks with that information.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. I have a question for
Yeah.
the board chair. Your head of your school, your principal stated that there's some things that he needs to help out those kids. And I'm sure that you're aware of those, but can you articulate for us what your plan is to provide him, your head of your school, with those resources so that he can help out those young scholars?
Sure. We have met with Mr. Fisher, and he has indicated the tools that he needs to be able to help our scholars to become successful. We have received a sizable donation of devices, and I apologize, we were not aware that we could have received devices from at this level. But we have received devices for 50 students, which would cover our 3rd and 5th grade, and then they would be assigned to other students as needed. We have investigated and are in the process of purchasing a curriculum package or putting those items together based on what his needs are. So, yes, we are aware. We have partnered with local colleges, Livingstone College and Catawba College, to provide internal academic support, and then other agencies that are partnering to support the operation of those budget needs.
So, one other question. So, when do you expect this to be implemented? I appreciate the fact that you're giving me some comfort that you have some support and you have some devices. Do you have a timeline that the students will be able to have those and this can be implemented?
The devices are on hand. So,
He just said that you didn't have device, you didn't have.
well, I believe what he was alluding to is that the devices that we have don't necessarily support I believe it's a package or a software system, so they have to be updated for that. And so we have identified that and are looking to update those devices. I think the devices are the that we have on hand.
Okay, I just, again, for my edification and for my peace of mind, do you have a date that this is going to get done?
Well, yes, we do. Frankly, I think that the devices are ready. It's just a matter of us checking in with our technology person to see if that's all been taken care of. But I can commit that by the end of this month, we will have those devices up and operating.
Okay. I think here I'm just one of the things that I think as we think about schools that are in this situation, and certainly, and I've shared this with other folks, like it is really hard to, when you think about turnaround and a school being successful, it is very, if you have academic, there's basically three areas, right? Academic, financial, operational. So my general theory on turnaround is if you have one area that's a problem, you have a shot at being successful. If you have two, it's going to be really, really difficult. And you have all three, the school's better off shutting down. And when I became the principal at Healthy Start, one of the first questions I asked is, what is the financial situation and how are they in compliance? Both of those were locked up tight. Great financial situation, great history of compliance. It's just the academics. So I said, okay, great, this is a winnable situation because I can actually focus entirely on academics. We have money to spend on academics. We can turn the school. If they had said, well, we only have $100,000 in the bank, we're bleeding students, and by the way, we're on compliance governance warrant, I would have said, sorry, I'm not going to take over, and I think you should turn in the charter. And I think that as we think about these schools, I've been thinking about this a lot. As we think about these schools, it is this gentleman is trying to fight the academic battle, but he's also saying I don't have the money to get we're going out and having to raise money to get. And you're saying we're out there in the community, we're expecting some extra funds. That's not a plan because nobody's giving money to failing charter schools that are in the news for being unsuccessful. And so I think I'm deeply concerned, because what I see is you all are fighting three fronts. We have compliance issues. We have a misunderstanding of compliance, testing procedures. We have obvious financial issues. You're already on month to month. And, he's been clear about the academics. The academics are in a tough spot. So it's like, he's like, I think I want to move, he's identified gaps. He wants to move them, but then that's when the financial, then if I can't get the good curriculum for kids because we have no money, it's a tough spot. And I share that as much for the board as we think about these schools. The question I've been asking myself as we think about turnaround is like, how many things can you turn around at one time? And, I would say you all are, this is a very desperate situation, and to layer on top of that moving, I don't know. What is there, can you stay where you are?
It would be difficult to stay where we are because of the size of the location.
So it's a tiny space. It can only fit 100 students.
Well, it is a tiny space. However, if we had to stay where we are, we could bring the modular units that we have looked at to that location as well.
Are you planning to move this school year, or is this at the end of the school year?
This end of the school year, yes.
I don't know. I think we definitely, to Stephen's point, I think we definitely need to see the school in April. You'll have another round of check-ins by then, I imagine.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's difficult. We're talking about a school that's grade level proficiency score was 10.9 last year.
I mean, it's a mountain to climb.
And it's very difficult to do, and it's one of those things too where we've got, we're not going to have the academic data for this school year until it's already started,
Yeah.
right? Till the
Because
next school year's already started, and you've got,
ELA and
financial issues, you've got governance, non-compliance issues, you've got academic issues. I mean, you're low performing now, and you're low performing, not continuing low performing. I still find it very interesting that you met growth but had a 10.9% grade level proficiency, which just again shows that the kids may be super behind, or I don't fully understand how growth works. But I mean, they must be super behind to still, to have met growth, do that. I mean, it's just a difficult situation that y'all have got, but I think we have to keep a close eye on everything that's going on. And some of these things, these are, you don't choose the students that come to school, the students choose you. And so, I can understand, academic students being very far behind. You did meet growth, but you've got a lot of unforced errors on here too.
That's a great way to put it.
You can choose to get your audit in on time. You can choose to make sure you're complying with the iStation requirements that's there. You could do everything that gets you off of governance non-compliance, and you could do what you need to do to get off the financial non-compliance. Those are all, unforced errors that you brought on yourself.
How many is it just you, sir, the principal? You're the only administrative staff? Who are the other administrative staff?
It is myself, but I have someone who is over operations and things like that. But as far as academic instructional leader,
Is there any other, there's an EC person or?
I do have an EC
Okay.
person. Yes.
I mean, it's a small number of students in grades 3, 4, and 5. I mean, you have to teach those kids yourself. I mean, it's not that many of them, I don't know. Yeah, I think I think the unforced errors is a good example. And part of it with the board, you all separated from a management company that was doing a lot of this, supposedly supposed to handle these matters for you, and now you've taken those on yourself and said, hey, we can do it. That's not really working very well. And now you have a situation where your principal's in a kind of dire situation academically, but is also facing down other challenges.
I may have missed this earlier, but what's the current enrollment as of today? How many students you have enrolled?
106,
106.
yes.
Over the course of the last 23 or so years that we've had charter schools in the state, about 42, I believe, schools have closed for various reasons. Some were forced to close. Some said, for the best interest of the children, we're going to turn our charter in because we can't get the job done. I think that's a serious discussion you need to have with your board as soon as possible to say, is this school in the best interest of the kids that we're serving? And if you seriously believe it is, you got to put together a plan tomorrow to make that happen. Ultimately, it's about the kids, and we don't see the job getting done. I mean, if you can't manage the adult business that you need to do to make the school successful, how can we have faith that you're managing what's essential for these scholars? Show us you can do the job by doing the adult business first, and that's not happening.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just quickly, I'm rooting for you guys, and I'm listening intensely to my colleagues and their concerns, and hopefully you will take this feedback back and evaluate where you are And I want to encourage you to lean on this staff like you've never done before, because as I hear it, and I'm just going to be transparent with you, from my ears to yours, you're on life support. And ultimately, it is about the kids. And so your success as the chair and as you, the head of the school principal, we need to see you guys successful so the kids can be successful. So don't hesitate to reach out to this staff. If you don't, you know. If you don't know, you just don't know, right? And so you have taken on a lot. And so I'm rooting for you. But again, I want to be clear and transparent. At the end of the day, if you guys cannot hit those benchmarks and meet those measurements, I'm sure this board will, if you don't make the call or make the adjustments, the board will do it for you. So again, I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, and so next meeting, bring all that check-in data.
Sure.
I'd like to see all that. I mean, right now, their EDS performance number is 6.3 versus the county 32.4 from last year.
I would
mean, it's
suggest
just-
that
it's
you
a-
I would suggest that you contact the Read to Achieve office and find out what the requirements are for Read to Achieve. Because that will blow up big on you if you don't get that done
Yes.
correctly.
Absolutely.
You need to check with accountability, your testing coordinator. Do you go to the testing meetings? Who goes to your testing meetings?
My testing coordinator.
Hey, you need to, all this stuff gets said at the testing meetings, besides the emails that come and all that kind of stuff. Non-compliance and accountability will get you in a ton of trouble.
Yes.
All right, I think we'll see you shortly, in about a month and a half,
Let
2
me
months.
suggest too that we require that all board members are here at that next meeting. Can we do that?
Yeah, and we need to see the audit as well as part of that. I mean, this is not promising. I'm just gonna just put it out there. Doesn't. Hopefully, we can. I don't know. Yeah, and I think we need to also be mindful. The longer schools that are not getting it done, if they don't open well and then they are on life support, as Joel put it, and, you know, the longer they stay open, the more problematic it is. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're behind now, but good discussion. Charlotte Choice is up next. We're gonna have an update from them. I'm gonna go fast through cyber. 'Cause I don't think I can get into this. Yeah, what is this?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Linda Cruz, and I'm the board chair, and I have with me Mrs. Sherida Stevens, who's our business manager.
You got your audit in on time, right?
Yes, sir, we're done. We actually brought a copy, just in case you needed a copy.
And I'm, any findings in the audit?
There were no findings in the audit. The audit turned out quite well. Ms. Stevens, if
Can we
you'd like
just
to
get a
talk about
quick
it.
financial update before we move into the academic stuff? This is for Charlotte Choice, right?
Charlotte Choice.
Yes. So, there may not have been findings, but in the notes to the financial statements, note 3 is a notice of going concern consideration based on the decrease in student enrollment. The school ended the 2019 fiscal year with an unassigned governmental fund balance deficit of $12,903, and expenditures exceeded revenues by approximately $102,000.
Different than what we have.
It's 2018.
I will double check, but I just pulled up the audit on the LGC, but I will,
One pager on this school.
no, 2018-19 fiscal year. For the 20 audit,
I mean, I guess I'm looking here at the, I guess, did the school fill out the sheet that we have on eBoard, or is that, okay? Because I guess when you get to finance, they said they were placed on financial noncompliance due to deficit in the 2018 audit. The issue is resolved and the school had a surplus in the 2019 audit.
So did you receive an unmodified opinion for 2019?
Let me make sure that sometimes the audits can get named incorrectly on the portal, but I am looking at it again. Oh, I'm looking, we have to accept the approved copy from, sorry, the local government commission.
Mr. Chairman, can we give staff time to pull this up and then if there's
Yeah, we can,
something-
we can talk about academics
why
while
don't
you're
you
looking
guys-
at finances.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
Academics?
Yeah, so based on I'm not going to have you necessarily rehash the report. It looks like EOG scores have increased pretty significantly. Is that right?
That
So
is correct.
3rd through 8th proficiency is 50%
That
in
is,
math?
that is correct. We have, concerning our math, the EOGs for our 3rd through 8th graders, from benchmark 1, which was 40% of our kids were on or above grade level, we
What
currently have
benchmark is it?
I'm sorry.
What's the benchmark, the check-in?
We're using the iReady.
Okay, the iReady. But just for last year, your 3rd through 8th math proficiency overall was 50%, is that right?
For the ELA, I believe it was, right?
It says 57 for ELA. Wait, is this the goal or is that the?
You're probably looking at our goals, I
Okay,
believe.
so you were 24% in math last year and 47% in ELA, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the iReady benchmark, 46% of the students on or early grade level. Okay. Okay, so it seems like things are trending up. I wanted to go into you're moving the facility, and I mean, it sounds like it's gonna be a totally different school in a year.
We are
Can you
building.
tell us about that?
Yes, we're building a new facility approximately about a mile from where we currently are located. And the plan is to move into that new facility in the new school year in August.
Okay, and that's been approved by the state board and everything?
I'm not sure I believe it has been. We've submitted the documentation, Ms. Stevens, I think you did. Is that correct?
I can speak to that really quick.
Okay, thank you.
They are moving within 5 miles, so it does
Oh,
not
okay.
require state board approval.
Okay.
So we are preparing to approve that. We just needed to find out when they wanted to, which they told me they want to change to the new name immediately, so that will be approved soon. And then it will change to the new name. What is the new name again?
Eastside Stream Academy.
Excuse me, what?
Eastside Stream Academy.
What's the R
Eastside.
stand for?
I'm sorry, ask that again?
Is it stream like STEM?
Science,
like an A and an R?
technology, reading, engineering, the arts, math.
Okay.
And
Yes, sir.
where are you moving to?
We're moving to Robinson Church Road.
So, and that facility is gonna be completed at what point?
Well, we've been told that it will be completed before the new school year, by the first week of August. As a matter of fact, I spoke with Jason, one of the board members, on our way here, and there are no concerns with the facility being ready by the fall in August. Of course, we're still waiting for NCDOT to approve a driveway permit.
Oh, yeah.
And so any day now, they should be breaking ground.
Okay, but is that partially why there was a deficit in the audit? Did you have a large expense related to the construction?
No, sir, but I'll have Ms. Stevens, the business manager, to talk about the audit. Well, we didn't have a deficit.
Oh, and Shonda, could you send the data sheet just on this school to the board? Thank you.
Sure, so you can explain.
I'm sorry. Good morning. The deficit that's in question for the 17-18, Then we have something different from what they
Yeah,
have.
we certainly do.
Are they maybe talking about, you're
I,
talking?
I think we can, the office can follow up with us
Okay.
regarding clarification on when the deficit was and whatnot. I mean, I think, uh,
I mean, even if there is a deficit, how big of a deficit are we talking about?
yeah, what are we talking about?
Leanne?
The deficit itself is on Exhibit 3, it's the unassigned governmental fund balance, and it's $12,000, approximately 13, and it states that it's due to the significant decrease in enrollment and investment in capital assets, but it does include on page, financial statement note 3, a notice of going concern.
Leanne, can you speak in the mic?
Yes, I'm loud, I'm usually don't. Excuse me. So the deficit on Exhibit 3, which is the unassigned governmental fund balance, is $12,903. Expenditures exceeded revenue of $102,000, and that's in Exhibit 4. And on page 34, I believe, or 46, Ashley has the number, there is a note to the financial statements of a going concern consideration. And that is based on what the auditor cites as a 48% decline in ADM and investment in capital assets.
So this is the second year that they've been noted as a going concern, correct?
It is. And so they will be placed on financial noncompliance disciplinary and then monthly allotment installments, but because of the timing of the receipt of the audit from the LGC, if they've received their third allotment to date, then it would start next fall.
So, Mr. Chairman, help me out here, or maybe staff, Dave. The email that we've got that shows that they've got a surplus of $6,200. Are we ignoring this, or I mean, help me reconcile your past audit concerns versus what we're currently looking at today. I think the date on here is of November 2019, a $6,200 surplus.
Okay, and so that would be something the school would have to speak to because we rely on the audits. And so it would be for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019, which was due in October. So that may be the confusion between what the school is talking about, what I'm discussing. But as of the last audit,
Okay.
these are the results.
Yeah, I think that's their current year budget.
Right, but I am
Picture of the
concerned, along with Mr. Ford, that if you're only projecting a surplus of this year of 6,000, you're coming into it with a deficit of over 12, you're still gonna have a deficit in this current year.
I'm sorry, this is the last time. These ladies may be referring to is in Exhibit 1, the net position is a positive. The school business, Division of School Business switched to unassigned governmental fund balance when that GASB 68 proclamation and the retirement benefits had to be recorded as liability through almost all of the charter schools into the red. So we switched to unassigned because that is truly a reflection of the available funding for operations. So
Thank you for that clarification.
Because Exhibit 3 and 4 are actually on more of the cash basis, correct?
yes, that's what we look at.
How, if, given your financial position, how are you building a building?
Well, we currently have investors who have been working with us actually since the inception of the school. And the investors have fronted funding for us. And so that is our financial support. And they're also building the facility for us. So this project has been in effect since the second year of the inception of the school. And so we've just continued now, well, I just came back on last year to continue to grow the school, to help turn the school around. And I think the school has done quite well considering on last year, I believe we came in with maybe about over $300,000 budget deficit.
They were planning that.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone from 296 students in 15-16 to last year, your 20-day ADM was 94 students.
I believe so.
What was that? Why did that happen?
Well, again, I'm just coming back in on last year, but I would attribute it to just maybe poor leadership. That's what I would attribute it to.
And so you were the previous leader and you left and now you're back?
That is correct.
Okay,
That is
so-
correct.
What's the ADM this year? What's your 20-day?
Our 20-day is at 110.
And you think with the new facility, you're gonna be able to get 350 students next year?
I do believe that, and I can explain why. At the end of the last school year, the 2017-18 school year, or was the 18-19 school year? Yes, the 2018-19 school year. When I returned back in January of last year, the ADM, I believe, was at 104. At the end of that school year, because of the poor leadership, probably about 50% of the students did not return to this 2019-20 school year. However, we enrolled well over 60 students on last year. And so that would account for the 110 that we have on this year. However, we currently have, in the building, we have about 126 or 27 students.
Is the construction of your new facility being financed through local banks, or is this a philanthropic? Because building a new facility in the process right now myself, no bank's giving me money if my enrollment's dropping 200 students a year.
Yeah, the Bank of the Ozark is financing the facility through the American Charter Development. So that is how the facility is being financed.
And when's the name change officially take effect? Because on your website, you've already changed the name. But that's
Yeah.
not technically been approved yet, is that correct?
We haven't approved
What-
yet.
I've been waiting to find out when they wanted it to take place, but yeah, it has not been approved.
Sounds like they wanted it to take place already.
Yeah, right, for rebranding,
We can approve that, so we can do it.
it just threw me a little bit because they're
Yeah,
not, they're, your website mentions nothing about being the Charlotte School Choice School. It's the new name completely.
Quick question, I wanted to follow back up on the relationship with your investor. What is the school's responsibility? When you say investor, I'm thinking investor wants a return. What is the school's responsibility to the investor, and have you determined what your monthly obligation is going to be for your facility, either return to the investor or to the bank?
We have, and I'll have Ms. Stevens to speak to that.
Due to us not knowing really what enrollment would be, we have entered into potentially a lease for the facility based on 25% of the ADM, whatever that may be. So we are working diligently to get that number up, because the facility will actually accommodate 550 scholars. But if we only have like 200, we certainly don't want to have committed to a lease payment that we couldn't afford. And so it's, because it is a long-standing relationship that we've had, we have committed to 25%.
That's 25% of your state revenue, whatever that is going to rent.
Right.
That's a lot.
So
It
how are you
is.
gonna manage that in a budget that you're already barely projecting a surplus now?
Actually,
25% of that?
technically, it is a reduced rent for us. Last year, the owner of the facility we're currently leasing cut the rent in half so that the school could afford to be there. However, if we have to stay there beyond this year, the rent was going back to market rent with no concern about how much of a percentage of our budget the rent was going to take.
We also had the situation, excuse me, that if they're low performing and they have an enrollment of 100 students, they can only grow 20%. So you're talking about 300 or 500,
We're aware of the limitation.
about 20, 30 students, right?
I'm sorry.
You're only gonna be
We
increase 20 or 30,
Right.
that's it.
We understand that.
So
We
then-
do understand that. However,
Is that from approved ADM or is that?
It was
Well,
whatever
see,
their-
they've been around so
it was
long
Whatever
that-
their ADM came in on their 20th day, they can. I'm
Okay,
gonna-
so because they're already past what their,
Yeah, way
what
past.
was in their charter.
Yeah, way
yes,
past it.
we have.
So, okay, so if you can only grow 20% above your approved ADM for the 1920 school year, how are you planning to get to 350?
The funding, if we are correct in our assumption, is the state will only fund a certain percentage. But that does not mean that we can't grow beyond that. We will not get state funding, but we will get the local funding for the additional students. And at some point, we really have to bite the bullet and go on and get our numbers back to where they were prior to the summer of 2017. We were at 300 and above then when we left. So we're trying to get back to there, and at some point, we just have to say we cannot continue to wait until we grow in increments, because in 5 years, we're hoping to be in a position to where we can purchase the building, but we can't do that with, 200 or less.
But if you have 350 kids, you have the cost of educating 350 kids,
We do.
teachers, all those things.
We do.
But you're not bringing in the revenue to support it.
That is true.
Yeah, I think that's a good
That could
question.
that really could exacerbate your current financial situation. You've got 60, you're planning a surplus, but it's small. And if you're not gonna get, for over half of your kids, you wouldn't get state money. So while CMS's local money's decent, it does not pay for the cost of educating a child. You could really be putting yourself in a tight, like making it next to impossible to make that work. That's gonna be hard.
All right, we're over time, so I want to bring this in for a landing here in the next 2 minutes. I mean, I think my concern is you're taking on the cost and the struggle with a whole new facility. Your enrollment has been going down, and now you've got to go out and recruit. Basically, I mean, it's basically a new school. I mean, you're opening a new school, so it's a lot at stake there, and a lot of financial.
If I may say this, as far as enrollment, we're really not having any problems with that. We've enrolled approximately 150 students already. Well, we received those applications already. And so enrollment is not going to be an issue, but I do understand what you're saying concerning being able to educate that number of students. And we do have, again, our investors they've always supported us financially. They have always backed us financially. In addition to that, we have had fundraisers and capital campaign that support as well. And so we found, again, since we've returned last year, that although it has been somewhat challenging, or it was challenging, but we were still able to educate our scholars. We're able to purchase whatever curriculum that we needed, whatever assessment tools. So my point is that our scholars, they're not lacking, that we have what we need to support our scholars academically and to grow them.
Okay, I mean, I think we're gonna need to have them back and get an update on how things are going, maybe in April. There's also a lot more competition out there in Charlotte right now. But hopefully the new facility will help, but I feel like you're in a very difficult financial. It's taking on a lot of costs. Okay, thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions right now? Okay.
Thank you.
application review till later in the day.
I'm gonna move, I'm gonna suggest that we move the application review, yeah, we'll just move it to the end of the day around 3, although you guys are gonna not wanna talk about that at the end of the day, but we will do that. And I think we can catch up here with cyber. So if the Cyber Academy, I don't believe Dr. Curry's here, but I think the board is here. We're gonna do get our kind of general update from cyber for the month, and then we'll get to our guests, because I don't want to keep them any longer.
Good morning,
So we'll be on time with
everyone.
them. Good morning.
I am Bridget Pfeiffer, Board Chair for North Carolina Cyber Academy. I have with me Dr. Shirley Arrington, who is a former principal and retired director of the Model Teacher Education Consortium for UNC General Mission. She also has a background in principal preparation and is currently working with the NC State Principal Preparation Program there. And if you guys may have already met Mr. Mullins, who is the director of our HR and also our operations currently. We also have an audience, our Ingenuity team member, as well as our supporting council that's been with us as well. You have received our monthly report, and if there's any questions, I would like to say our audit has been complete. It was a little difficult working with the transition with Pearson as far as between 2 different CPAs and everything, but it was complete. There was no findings, and I believe it will, or if it has not already been turned in, it should be.
All right. And I'll direct board members to the e-board where they've responded to all the questions. It's hard to see this data chart. It's so small. So I'm trying to, could someone give us like the 5-minute synopsis on, I know Ms. Blunt is not here today, so is there anybody that could talk about data or no?
Do you want me to pull it up for you?
Just what's wins and challenges, I guess. would be-
Right. So, we've had our benchmarks and we've done some of the EOCs, and our math was up about 15 points.
So is that the official EOC because it's the course? is
Right.
it?
Our math
Okay,
one
great.
was up just a tad over 15 points, but our biology was down
Okay.
20 points.
Oh.
And so that is not good. We had one teacher that handled all the biology. We've done some things different with our schedule second semester, so we hope that
There'll be another biology class second semester?
yes.
Okay.
And again, our math one is up, so we're glad about that. And of course, we've talking about data. We've looked at our benchmark data, and it was not in line. Our benchmarks for biology were much lower than what the actual results were. So we're certainly going to take a look at that with the curriculum team. Even though I'm HR and operations, I am involved with curriculum some as well. That's my background. So with math, it was encouraging, but with biology, it's not encouraging.
Did
But
you say the benchmarks were?
the benchmarks for math was pretty close
Right
to
in
what
line.
we did in line, but our biology benchmarks were higher. Last month, when we shared the data with this board, then the results came in biology, and we were much lower. So, but we're hoping with elementary and middle and our other benchmarks in high school will be right in line.
Okay. See a little better. Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other kind of things that you feel good about, things that you're concerned about going into the second semester, what you're focused on?
Well, I'll say our enrollment is up. That was one of the questions. We are, as of Friday, at 2,451 kids in on base. We have 32 more students ready to be put in on base, and then we have 48 more students that have submitted part of their paperwork. So we would be at 2531 if we could get all those in, and then we're cutting enrollment off for this school year, February 20th.
And you have you've increased by 271 students since like December. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is that just parents basically deciding at the mid-year point to find a different option, or do you have any sense of why people are enrolling?
Well, I think there's two reasons. One is we gained a lot more middle and high school kids, probably because it was a clean break from their brick and mortar to come to us second semester. But also our board renewed efforts with our marketing team to start back the marketing, and we started that back in December, and that's going to run through the end of February and March, mid-March. And so once we started back our marketing, our call volumes to our enrollment team in a 2-week period, the previous 2 weeks, we've had over 700 parent calls, incoming calls about enrollment from our Phillips management team. So the interest is there. It's just a matter of what I said last time when we met. We're getting the students in, but we've got to be concerned about the number of kids that are also withdrawing. And those are some leadership things that we're working on, because had we not had all those withdrawals, we would have a wait list of hundreds of kids.
What's the withdrawal situation in the last month?
Just around 100 students have withdrawn. Okay. But this school year we've had, obviously this summer we had some intent not to returns, but this school year we've lost about over 500 students.
Oh, wow.
And I would like to add to that, a lot of the transitioning the curriculum from Connections to Edgenuity, the platform is completely different. Being a parent myself and talking to other parents, the workload is a lot. And so we had a lot of parents that this was not an easy transition for, and they found that it just did not work for them anymore. And so we're still trying to figure that out and to work through some of that. But that was, it's, you know, just coming to understand we can't please everybody. We have some parents that, in some households, that, like I think we talked about before, the ease of being able to click through, and then also the problem of having to spend that time actually in the curriculum now, actually engaged in the platform. And so that is, the time consumption is definitely there too. So I believe that they're working through a lot of that as well.
Okay.
Looks like you got your budget worked out too from the problem we had last time. It looks much better now.
And I believe we have our finance person on the line if there's any questions. There was some, I guess it was a typo or something that was on the last budget that was submitted.
So Bruce, then Joel.
Yeah, a couple questions if I may. The students that you're getting, the most recent 271 students that you're getting kind of mid-year here, have you done any kind of assessment in terms of where they're at academically? Are you finding any type of general sense of they're on average the same as all of your other students have been with you all year, or are you finding that these are students that may be coming to you that weren't performing at their local school and now they're looking for this option, which only makes your job that much harder when they're already, what's the...
Right. So Edgenuity provides us a piece where when they come to us, there's an assessment. So we will find out where they're at academically. And I'd say most of them are where our kids are now. Most of the kids that we're getting from brick and mortar are struggling students. Not all, but a majority. And they're, and that's probably the reason why they're trying North Carolina Cyber Academy. Brick and mortar just hadn't worked for them. And so now this is another option. But the majority of those kids are strugglers. We're going to try to get them to where they need to be. I want to go back to the last learning management system. Those students didn't have to be on task, and I heard our board member talk about kids, and we're in the business of educating kids. A lot of those kids that we have in our system now, last year, the previous learning management tool that we were using, they could click through. Parents could put their kid in front of a computer for an hour a day, and then they were done. But with Edgenuity, it is more rigorous. which I think it needs to be more rigorous. When you look at our results from the previous 4 years, yeah, we need to raise the rigor. And so, you know, what's going to happen is, you know, kids are going to come and they're going to learn to work, or they're going to leave and go back to brick and mortar. But our charter school, and any charter school, is not just a school where kids can leave brick and mortar and think it's going to be easier. And so there is high standards. There is an expectation, and that's part of the culture that we're trying to change, because it's not just the kids either. It's some of the staff that it weren't as rigorous on them, and there weren't as much oversight. But now there's more oversight with the students. There's more oversight with the staff, and with more oversight, we're going to have better test results. It's not going to happen in one semester, because we didn't get here in one semester, but you know, our kids are pretty much the same across the board, but we have a good learning management system in Edgenuity that allows us to be able to assess kids where they're at, and then let's start working on getting them where they need to be. And it is all that, when I was in school, when most of y'all were in school, you were in school 6 to 8 hours a day, and that's what NC Cyber is Academy. It's a 6 to 8 hour school day. It's not just sitting home and.
Second time, just one more question.
Okay,
I hear
I'm
what you're
sorry.
saying. I would say, though, that the most important element you mentioned there is actually not the learning management system. I know everyone has their favorite in this
Right.
world, but it's the role of the teacher.
That's exactly right.
So, you know, a learning management system provides you all the data that you need on the student, is not still going to be effective if you don't have the teacher and the oversight you just talked about. Real quickly, on the budget, your admin budget is 1.75 million. How many staff make up that budget?
That's over about 112 staff members, and that's salaries, that's benefits.
Just for the admin.
Just the
Oh, for
admin.
admin, we've got, let me think through my head right quick, because there's about 15 admins.
And then how many teachers at the 3.275? Right.
65 teachers.
Thank you. Thanks for your input this morning.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
2 quick questions, actually. One, for parental involvement and parental engagement, what does the system, your platform, provide for a parent who is signing up a kid, and how can that parent follow up to ensure their child's success?
Well, we have an enrollment team that starts the process. But see, then when we get them enrolled, we have principals and we have grade band coordinators that should be communicating with all of our parents. And since I've started in July and come to some of these meetings, you know, I've heard the concern of parents not being able to make contact with some of our staff. We have principals in place to handle phone calls from parents. We have counselors in place to handle those phone calls. We have grade band coordinators. We have assistant principals. And then we have other administrative staff that should be able to handle these phone calls from parents. And we have some of our staff that's doing a really good job of communicating with parents, but then we're still working on some of our staff to understand we need to be reaching back out to parents that contact us.
Let me clarify my question and try to move this along.
Yes, sir.
Does the platform allow for a parent to check up on his or her
Yes.
child?
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. That's in our learning management. They can log in to see how much time their student's been in the system, and there's a platform in there so they can communicate with teachers and administrators.
All right, second question is, are there clear expectations for the student and the parent about what it's going to take for that child to be successful in this type of learning environment? And I'm talking 1, 2, 3, or ABC.
Yes, those guidelines are given to parents, and that's a part of the enrollment packet when our parents enroll their students, what the expectation is.
I would also like to add, right within the curriculum and Edgenuity, the parent has the ability to not only log on and see where the student is, but to also see where they're off task. He talked about our pacing. So we have there's 3 different alerts. There's a pacing alert, there's a mastery alert, and there's an engagement alert. And all of those things are, not only do the teacher get a notice of, but as well as the parents. So, and then of course the board, we get to see the trending. One of the things that I noticed, our pacing alert has gone down. That means we have more students that are on task. But as well, we talked about that click through. So now it's the mastery alert as well. So we have to make sure that as the kids, the pacing alert is going down, our mastery alert is going up. So those are just some things that you will see in the documentation that was provided. I want to add one more feel-good story. We had a teacher that was acknowledged at our last board meeting. What was her name? I'm sorry. I can't remember. The teacher that we gave the award to. She's a new teacher, and I can't remember her name. I hate that I can't remember. Yes. She was new to this environment, coming in from a brick and mortar environment. And one of the things that she said that she found that being from a brick and mortar environment and the virtual environment, that it took what she learned there and this virtual environment, it took everything to another level. Because not only do you have to be the teacher in the classroom, but you also have to be able to master some of the counseling, some of the other things that are done outside of the classroom. And it was just really great to have her perspective on being able to come over here to this virtual environment and just be able to perform at such a high functioning, you know, whatever. But I just wanted to add that our teachers are coming into this environment and they're performing and they're really helping our students grow beyond what is normally expected in a typical brick and mortar environment.
Great. All right, thank you. We'll look forward to an update next month from y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, at this time, we're back on schedule and excited to hear from the folks of Movement, Ashley Park Elementary, and Mr. Greg Schoenbeck to share a story of district charter collaboration, which is something that I think is often cited as not happening. Well, I think my opinion is that a lot of the work, some of that work is happening. It's just happening under the radar. Like myself and one of my principal friends who's running a Durham public school, and we're texting back and forth all weekend long about ideas things that we're trying to put in place. So it's happening, and so this is excited to showcase some of it.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning. Also, while we're waiting, oh, sorry.
Do intros?
I was just going to say, Rhonda Dillingham wanted me to make sure to remind everybody that Robert Condicio is speaking at Woods Charter this afternoon. He's the author of the book, How the Other Half Learns, which just came out, and then he's going to be at TJ tomorrow. So for all the people out there listening, or those in the room,
7 p.m. at Woods.
7 p.m. tonight at Woods. I'm going. I'm excited. I read the book in a weekend. It was
But
great.
it's sitting on my desk.
Pick it up and read it. You'll blow through it. It's excellent. So excited about that talk. It's my Valentine's gift from my wife. I get to go to the.
Should do intros?
Yep, you're all set.
Good morning. I'm Greg Schoenbeck. Pleasure to be here today, and thanks for having us. My team runs a social impact implementation firm. We're based in Charlotte, but have served 13 states and about 40 organizations across the country. I previously started as a teacher at West Charlotte High School, and then moved to Tennessee to help launch with a charter school in under-resourced neighborhood in Tennessee. But really excited to just be here today. I want to introduce my esteemed guests as well.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Sumter, the school director at Movement School in Charlotte.
Good morning. I'm Jolene Adams, the principal of Ashley Park.
Is it still morning? It is. Good morning. I'm Brenda Alston Hassan. I'm the instructional coach at Ashley Park Pre-K 8.
So my team had the pleasure of working with both of these schools on separate projects over 3 years ago when both schools began to ask us around family engagement and family empowerment and the importance of it. And this is actually a picture from one of our recent family nights as well. And so what we're going to present to you today is kind of what we've been working on as a team for the past 3 years, some of the results around district charter collaboration that we've seen locally, and perhaps what that could look like moving forward as well. So we know what district charter dynamics, at least in this room, look like across the state and often across the country are pretty bleak. But what we've seen in our own research and work is that when they happen and when they happen intelligently and intentionally, incredible results for kids and families and everybody serving these kids. And so we know that's an important element of this work, and also family engagement and empowerment, which are two different words, obviously, because they're spelled differently, but they have different meanings, not only to us, but to the families that we were serving, that we were able to collect through pre-surveys and focus groups with these families as well. And so want to talk today about how both of those things work together. And lastly, I think this is important context too, is that from our standpoint, the terms family engagement are often thrown around a lot, but when you ask a number of people what that term means, you get a lot of different definitions. And not only that, but one of like co-creating and valuing with them and helping understand what that work actually looks like. And this is a very small quote from the Carnegie Report and the Carnegie Foundation in 2018 that said one of the most critical things when schools are working with families is to co-create and co-value with them. And so not only just talking to them, answering a survey, but consistent co-creation of always checking in, always working alongside, and always having true partnership with families before any decisions are made to ensure they have a voice at the table. And we've worked really hard as a team to do that throughout this, which is why I think we've been fortunate to get some of the results that we'll talk about later. I want to stop talking and then pass it over to the leaders of the school to talk about initially how this work started and how we all came together.
So I was approached by Greg for this project about 3 years ago, right around now. It was our first year opening, and of course, I said, sure, let's add another thing to my plate and approach this work. But I trusted Greg, but I also just really believe that I've seen the power of the district charter collaborations, and I really was excited to pioneer this work. So we began with just a simple meeting between myself and Ashley Park, where we just discussed what are some common problems we're experiencing as schools and what is something we'd like to partner around to help build in both our schools that we could work on. And we really landed on just getting parents more involved. And so this whole idea of working together collaboratively to do parent engagement was born out of this meeting.
I became the proud principal of Ashley Park this July. So this partnership had already began prior to myself being named. However, since I've come on, the amazing partnership and collaboration, our schools are literally, less than a mile apart. We share families and the community partners that come and collaborate with us share both of our families and our schools. So what I've seen from this, just joining in July, is our parent engagement. Our last one that we had an event for our family with financial literacy. It was the highest ever turnout. We had over 423 families come out. So that was the highest that our school has ever seen in history. So, and I'm going to let Ms. Hassan speak about the rest.
Yes. So when I stepped into this work about 3 years ago, we were under different leadership, and the idea was to grow our family engagement at our school. And so initially I came in just trying to restructure and look at how we were actually using our PTA at that time. And so under our previous leadership, she came with this idea of, hey, let's collaborate with a school that's, like we just said, a mile away from us, a charter school. And to be honest with you, I was kind of a little leery about it, like, wait a second, this is a school that's really close to us, we're competition. However, so much more has come out of it. We're not in competition. We're actually truly collaborating, and through that, we're able to see equal growth. So just like at Ashley Park, we have increased our parent engagement and our parent participation with our events, and the same thing is happening at Movement. So it truly is a collaboration that some people may say, oh, this would go on anyway, actually would not. I've been in this business for many, 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 many years. I look really young, but it's been a while. And I've seen some great activities and I've seen some great parent events, but nothing like what we're doing together. As a matter of fact, our biggest event, as Ms. Adams just mentioned, which had over 400 parents involved and families and students and teachers, actually came from an idea from Movement. It was the financial literacy that I would have never thought of, that Jamie was able to do at her school, and we did the same thing at ours. So once again, in the community, together, we were able to collaborate and grow. And that's just one example of many things that we're able to do. We have an upcoming event in May where we'll be collaborating once again, bringing the communities together. So in essence, what's happening through this work is more than just working in isolation, but is working as a community. And that's what's making it successful.
And just wanted to bring in one more voice in the room. And so as many kind of startups initiatives, our team wrote a grant to help get this work off the ground once there's interest. Chrissy Thomas from Wells Fargo couldn't be here today, but they've been lead kind of grant supporters in the grants that we've been able to acquire to fund this work. And she just had a few thoughts we wanted to share with you all today.
Voice.
Hi, I'm Christy Thomas with Corporate Philanthropy and Community Relations at Wells Fargo. I'm excited to talk to you about this partnership. Wells Fargo has been a supporter of the Movement School and Ashley Park collaboration for the last 2 years. We initially got involved in this investment as a way to find some innovative opportunities in education. We knew that there weren't partnerships happening in the state or in Charlotte between charters and public schools, and as charter schools continue to grow in Charlotte, this was something that was really on our radar. A couple things that really stood out to me as we went through this program. One were some of the unexpected outcomes, things that we saw around professional development opportunities and leadership growth for the teachers and the leaders that were involved in this program. The other thing that really surprised me that I think you'll hear more about was the engagement of both the families and the teachers. I remember having a very specific conversation with a teacher asking how she felt about staying late after school in addition to the work she did all day. And she said, I don't mind at all because this has been such a great benefit to me to get to meet the families and to work with the families of the students in my school. We need more opportunities for collaboration like the Movement School and Ashley Park in our city, in our state. I think it's critical for families to feel engaged in the school community, and it's important for schools to have a way to fund this work going forward. Thank you again for your time.
This is another picture from Ashley Park last year. We did Literacy Night, but staff were breaking down literacy data with families based upon feedback we were getting. Families saying the new literacy is challenging. This is not how I was taught reading back in the day. And so we kind of constructed a night to make sure we had 90 minutes for families to meet with teachers and break down and review data so teachers could help them understand what the literacy curriculum was and how to interact with it moving forward at night. So we're going to go quick. We want to respect your time, but want to share a little bit about the model. We've talked about the goals focused on increased family engagement and empowerment and how we began to measure that. Here's essentially the process we use in an annual basis and a monthly basis. And so it first started with focus groups and pre-surveys, which we'll talk about a little bit. Both schools combined have about 950 families. We were able to collect close to 600 surveys. And from those surveys from both schools, we get a really good sense of what were on families' minds, what they felt strongly about with the school, and areas of growth. And of course, want to give the school leaders and the administrators at the school a lot of credit because that feedback's not always easy to receive at first, but then the ability to respond to that, to adapt to that, and then really co-create solutions with families, I think is why we've been able to see in some of the data that we'll show you in a moment. And then what essentially came from this was families said they wanted more resources and more time with their staff. And so as we began to work with the schools, we asked, what might this look like? And began to build kind of family empowerment events that were happening often at night, but sometimes during the day and sometimes on Saturdays as well, to create time and capacity for both families and staff to meet together to share additional resources and hold these nights based on themes. Then at the end of each night, as a former educator, we give exit tickets to make sure we're collecting feedback from families on a monthly basis around what worked well, what didn't go well, what do you want to see differently next month. And that cycle we're able to follow every month, I think allows us to have a really good pulse on what families want and believe, but also what we need to change to better serve them as well. And so we've ranged, last year we had 20 what we call database family empowerment events, anywhere focused on financial literacy, math, madness, or book character night. So in essence, this breaks down into 45 minutes of kind of in-class academic support for families and scholars, additional 30 to 45 minutes for community resources and community partners, and then dinner and transportation home. So kind of broken down between 45 minutes academics, 45 based upon what we're getting from different families as well. Data really quick. And so there's 919 families at both schools last year. 62% of families across both schools showed up to at least one of these family nights. And so that allowed us to get a sense not only like how we're supporting Ashley Park, who was pre-K-8, but Movement School, which was K-3 last year, knowing that families with students in 8th grade have different needs and resources than families with students in 4th grade. And that allowed us to adopt each of these as well. Just data at Ashley Park, so 59.4% of families were served, so 310 out of 522, which gives us a lot of good data about how we can support each of these families at different grade levels. And here's just a sense of the attendance last year broken down at each of these family nights.
As far as last year data, when you look at it, it was slow moving. When you look at our first family event, that's something that's kind of traditional. In most schools, open houses are going to be those events that everyone shows up to because that's when you get your schedules, meet the teachers. But as you continue to look at our data, as far as we continue to go through our family nights, you started to see that increase. And those increases were based on the impact of our collaboration and being able to connect on those themes and being able to connect on those resources and feedback from the parents as far as what they wanted beyond what would have been a traditional kind of parent event.
And I would just like to add to that, I think the collaboration is what helped us get out of our traditional mindsets about family night and begin to become innovative. And as you can see, as we went on, the themes got a little more festive and it really invited families in. But again, out of the collaboration were those things born. And what are you doing at your school? How are you getting parents in? How are you reaching them? Those are the conversations we were having collaboratively together. And as you see, when we had drops, that we were able to work together in our community to reach our families and get them out at the school.
Mardi Gras math sounds dangerous.
It was interesting.
Pure fun. This is more data from Ashley Park. So again, on my left, your right, you'll see the 62%, but on the opposite side, you'll see some additional data broken down by grade level and by subsector grades, which was important to differentiate, again, what pre-K4 families are doing at these nights compared to what 5th grade through 8th grade families and scholars are doing at these nights as well. And that differentiation and that focus on detail is really important. Movement was able to serve 62.2% of total families or students last year at least each one of these family nights. And here's our data as well.
So one thing we're really excited about going into this year is I was happy with the 66%, but I said, who are we not seeing? So this year we've been really intentional about targeting the families that we need to see, the parents that we need to get through the door. So this project and collaboration has really helped us be very intentional in who we are targeting now to get in the door and get them the resources that we know are valuable that will help raise the bar for both our schools.
And just to offer insight, like this data from last year allowed us to partner And I think there were 27 families that had never been to one family night for a movement last year. And so we were able to do a little case study and reach out personally to all 27 families. And of those 27, 20, there was a language barrier, either Spanish or another language. And so then we were able to set up additional resources to make sure that we had translated phone calls home, but additional text and communication home translated in their languages so that they felt welcomed to the school at these nights. And so that additional insight allowed us to just differentiate our efforts even further. Additional data, again, for movement broken down by grade level, that's really high. So what does this all mean? So exit ticket data compiled for last year. You can see a lot of families feel strongly about these nights and would recommend them to others. 90% of families at these schools, this post-survey, felt more engaged or supported as a result of these nights. And we think the best data piece so far, as we're rolling it up from last year, 70% reported either following up with community members, so this could be jobs, this could be housing assistantships, this could be credit counselors that were showing up to these schools at nights to offer credit recovery sessions, or using academic and curriculum resources at home as a result of these nights. So we feel this is probably the biggest indicator of success from these numbers as well. We want to talk about quickly what we think makes this a little different. You can see these three things. So the joint professional development, these two schools are meeting monthly together to talk about and break down data from these nights. Some of the data my team's able to break down to present back to the schools and the community partners as well. This is a photo from this fall where there's a joint professional development where both schools come together, share resources, share ideas about what's happening, what's not. This is actually a mom from Ashley Park that's been incredibly I think just supportive of this work and offers us a lot of good feedback about what's working well and what, as a mom at Ashley Park, we should be doing differently to support her and her children. And this is some of the communication schedule we use, but want to give the schools some additional insight as well, or give them time. Or anything. I think we're at time.
I think on the data, back when you looked at the slides, something that we've looked at and we've collaborated on is that our parents come out when our students are performing and looking at ways. I think the movement, your holiday program had over 500 something numbers. Our last event, we had financial literacy, but we also had our students singing, our band performing, and our chorus singing. Our parents want to see their kids and celebrate their kids as well, but also making sure that we're bringing in engaging activities for them as well. So that has also been our key. We also use the data and looking at our data. And as Greg showed, our elementary attendance has always been big, but our middle school parents and our kids weren't coming to events. So we have really dialed that in this year. And our middle school engagement at our last 3 events has also been higher than it has before.
I would just think the final piece for me as a school leader was the communication piece that, you know, you think as a school leader, you communicate well and all these things go out, but this project has really helped me clarify how we communicate, how many times we communicate, in which languages and which forms we communicate, and that was built out of the partnership as we did different events and talked about, well, what are you doing, how are you doing it? And so now we've built a formula that each school uses with how many touch points we have to have with families before an event, which the magic number is 5. In previous years, it would have been 1 flyer that went home that probably got left in a book bag. So we've really been really intentional in using our collaborative efforts to figure out how to best meet our community's needs.
I'll just co-sign on that. We get asked a lot like silver bullets, and you're all smart enough to know there are no silver bullets in this work. But if anything, we think the communication schedule is really important, which really came from families. And so a lot of families at the initial pre-survey said, we don't get a heads up until maybe a few days ahead of time. And so I want to come, but I need more of a heads up to figure out a ride or childcare. And then we had a lot of feedback around, well, I get the paper home, but an email reminder or a Facebook post reminder would be nice. So we kind of landed on this 5, and the first one's always a colored printed RSVP with a nice design, and we receive a lot of just anecdotal feedback from families that it makes them feel honored, it makes them feel respected and appreciated by getting that every month, and they know exactly that they're going to get it 10 days ahead of time. They know it's always the last Wednesday of every month for Ashley Park on the last Thursday of every month for movement. And so they can build their schedules around that. And that human-centered design and kind of that customer approach, I think, is why families are showing up the way they are. I want to honor your guys' time. I know we have about 10 minutes left, so can keep talking or can pause for questions or the video that we have.
I mean, keep going. This is great.
Great. So let's see here. So just probably nothing new to you guys is that schools aren't often well-funded at a macro level, and oftentimes aren't well-funded directly for capacity to support families in this way, both either with time or with additional resources. I probably shouldn't be the one talking to you about this, so I'm going to stop talking and see if Jamie or the school leaders want to talk.
So we're a Title I school, and as a Title I school, we have 1% of our budget, Title I budget, to use for family engagement. And we are able to use that to create great ways for our parents to be involved. However, this collaboration has really allowed us to expand that. And we're able to do a lot more things with our families.
I just think, I mean, you all know the budgets everyone works with here, but being a new charter, our money can be especially tight. So being able to use grant and funding from other places to do something we value and want to do has been a tremendous lift. We have food for our families every family night. They've come to expect that. We have lift rides for families who need it. So really finding innovative ways to support our families and get them in through our collaboration and through this grant has been a wonderful blessing to us in our budget restraints as we look to the years to come.
So there's a 3-minute video from last year's recap. Would it be helpful to watch that or do questions?
3 minutes. Let's see the video.
Thumbs up.
Saw somebody familiar in it.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, got a video, but she's here. She could have said it. Right, but she's here. If you weren't here, it'd be different.
I know, right?
While they're working on that, would you be interested in coming to the State Board of Ed and make this exact same presentation so the State Board can see this fantastic collaboration between charters and traditionals?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll be getting in touch with you.
Can we do a couple questions while we wait? Is
Yeah.
that okay? So this is all very fascinating to me just because this is something that I've heard a lot in traveling the state, both at traditional and charter schools as one of the state teachers of the year. One of the biggest thing, and I think I'm going to hit with Ashley Park that I want to hear from you guys is that I've had a lot of principals and teachers tell me that they would love to do more collaboration with charters, but they are concerned from the political standpoint of what they would have to wrestle with their own boards within their district. So how do you talk them through navigating that if they exist in that kind of a space?
You want me to go first and then you go from there?
Sorry to give you the really hard question
it's
first.
like a
The other ones are
50-50
easy,
here.
I promise.
So as far as starting this initiative, it was through, like I said, our previous leadership, who was an innovator. She wanted us to do something different. She wanted us to think outside the box because, as we know, we have our 1% funding and we can go ahead and continue to have the cookies and juice and the PTA and all of that goodness. And so she came to me and she was saying, Brenda, this is an opportunity to think bigger. Yeah. So she had the green light to go ahead with this before she even came to me, so there wasn't any pushback. As far as the funding that's provided for this. It just gives us an opportunity to grow bigger, to think bigger. And the organization and the systems through this allows us to ensure that we are truly empowering the parents. Because many times some of the programs that we have, they're centered around what we think parents want. But prior to any of this work happening, we were able to really figure out what our families wanted, and everything that you're seeing is driven by what parents have asked for. And so with your parent power, you have no other choice but, to go ahead and continue with the work.
I know that the support politically has improved. At our last event, we had a board member. We also had several district representatives. They wanted to come and see it live, and they came to our event, and they were so impressed. And I didn't receive direct feedback, but I'm sure Greg maybe did. But they were very impressed with our event, and additional schools are wanting to sign up.
I think even from an enrollment standpoint, your enrollment's gone up, student enrollment, or at least stayed the same?
Stayed the same.
Stayed the same, yeah. So from movement with a nice, pretty facility, and Jamie leading the school, which is great, but their families have stayed the same and stayed consistent. Engagements rose at the district level as well, so I think we've received some questions, my team, around that. And I don't think have been many downsides to it. But we'll play the video real quick.
The way Charlotte has evolved for a long time, the West Side has not gotten as much support or as equal support as they need to.
The charter schools and the public schools work in silos. There's a lack of collaboration, and being able to take two needs that both of the schools were struggling with and to bring both of those groups together to talk and solve the problem is a really excellent idea.
It's almost like this sense of family. Only time schools have come together in the past has been to compete. It hasn't been to like work together or do family nights together or community events together.
These are two schools located on the west side of Charlotte, about 0.8 miles away from each other. Each school hosts 10 consecutive family nights, one per month throughout the school year. We've had themes that have ranged from celebration of African American history to science nights to book character night. Families are providing feedback to the school can better support the families, and vice versa. We combine that qualitative and quantitative data to really make sure that we're doing the best we can to support families and create a family night experience that is meaningful for them.
The project allows Jamie and I to connect on a monthly basis, or at least that's how it started. And it extends to collaborating between our two family collaboration committees, so exposing our teachers to one another and getting them access to one another.
It grew around this idea of, we really want parents more engaged in what's going on in our school. And then the collaboration has just evolved.
We're all public schools, and as parents, we're all trying to find the best place for our kids. Sometimes I struggle with, okay, well, how did your teacher want you to do this? So these nights have helped me have the right language to help guide him at home.
Family nights here has just meant so much to our family. This program helps encourage and strengthen communities. The exchange of ideas occur, the exchange of resources occur, and then really it just kind of trickles back to us being in the same community.
I am the future. I am.
On average, we've had like 200 families come through our school with each event. It's something that the families and scholars look forward to every single month. It's something the staff looks forward to, I look forward to. It's allowed us to have events that are truly catered towards what families want, not what we think is best for families.
The ability to now talk to my families once a month allows me to build a macro structure of relationship that allows
Streaming, good old DVR streaming.
High quality internet over here at DVR.
Yes, sir.
Town Raleigh. Individually thereafter, right? But it all starts with just that access.
There's a wealth of resources available to schools. We just don't connect with them enough, and to use those to help you, because without Wells Fargo grant, we wouldn't have been able to do 90% of the things we're doing.
In an education setting, everybody wants to figure out how to get more engagement and more empowerment. The idea to sort of package it up and be able to take it to other places is an area as a funder, as an investor, that we are really interested in.
I think it begs the question, what if more schools work together? What if we opened sourced all of our resources? What if we shared all of our partners? What if we shared our transportation? And what if we shared lessons? But I think the platform that we're creating based upon the leadership of these two principles and the possibility is really endless.
State Board needs to see that video, absolutely.
I'm sorry?
State Board of Ed needs to see that video. Thank you.
Great.
Quick
Well-
question for Ms. Hassan. Who was the district leader that led this effort? You didn't mention that person's name.
Denise Watts at that time, yeah. And just transferred into Dr. Barnes, but Denise.
Yeah, a phenomenal leader. Unfortunately, she's no longer with CMS. And so that kind of strategic, bold, courageous leadership at the district level is important, that is able to work with the administration and that board, in addition to not being afraid to reach out to the charter schools in the area in which she served. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for what you guys are trying to do on behalf of kids. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the political and we get caught up in the numbers, and the numbers are important, but at the heart of what we're trying to do is to improve the quality of education for all kids in our state. So I want to say thank you guys for what you do.
So I do have one final question, kind of related to numbers. So do you guys have any direct data that kind of points towards any correlation between families that attend these nights with their kids are more likely to see an increase in reading scores, an increase in math scores, whatever it is, you fill in the blank there. Is there any, or is that the next step? Is that what happens this next year?
Yeah, so 2 weeks, we'll let you know. We partnered with UNCC last year, and they're rolling up the pre and post survey data as well as interviews with families, and we've been very sensitive with confidential information and student level data, both at the district side, but the charter side as well. So with as much data as we were able to obtain, UNCC finally has all they have, and we're happy to share that report over the coming weeks. Early data looks promising.
Yeah.
They did a prelim data, but I think anecdotally there's some stories as well that maybe the school leaders would be happy to share.
I'll be curious to see what that data says, but at our school, we have seen such an increase in parent engagement that families know who to go to when they need something, that I really can't imagine a world where our data doesn't follow along with families that are coming, because they're coming through the door, they're asking the right questions, they're seeking the right resources in a way that looks very different from like year 1 and year 2 as we went into year 3.
Our first event that we did in October, which is normally parent-teacher conferences, we built it around doing it differently, and so our scholars led those conversations. So the impact of scholars sharing their data, what their goals were with their families, was huge. Our families absolutely loved it. Our teachers loved it. And not only were the kids needed to know what their data was and know what their goals were, but so did their parents. And they were leaned in and listening versus sitting in a traditional parent-teacher conference where you're going over, here's the report card, sign here, Johnny hasn't been behaving, right? So it was student-led data conversations, and again, I look forward to seeing the data from UNC Charlotte.
All right. This was excellent. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. All right, we're going to break for lunch.
1 o'clock?
Yep. Reconvene at 1.
You guys have some snacks?
I can probably save, so it's fine.
Okay, yeah. Are you guys gonna join us for lunch?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, just go on in there when you're ready.
Yep, behind, yep.